All right. Good morning. Welcome to Rossmore Emergency Preparedness Organization's March 2021 meeting. We are fortunate to have two wonderful staffers from PG&E, and they're going to talk to us today about utility cutoffs safely and their wonderful medical baseline program. For those of you who are watching this on channel 28 or on our YouTube channel, which we will later have it up on both, I want you to know that the core singular mission of Rossmore EPO is to help our neighbors get themselves prepared and accept their sole responsibility to get their household and themselves prepared for a disaster here in Rossmore. That's our goal. We'll turn it over to our high-tech coordinator, Harris Greenberg, and he's going to give us some ground rules that make it easier for you to participate fully in our meeting today. Harris?
Yes, good morning. You've heard this a few times in the past, but again, because this is a large meeting, we ask that everybody keep their video turned off, and we are going to mute the microphones of everyone who is not a presenter. And we're even going to ask the presenters, then they're not talking, to keep their microphones muted. And keep your videos off so only the presenters are visible. You can participate and submit your questions and comments in the chat control in Zoom. And Christine Monsen will be watching the chat questions, and she'll summarize them and address them to the presenters at the end of the meeting. The meeting is being recorded, and a copy of the video, including closed captions in English and subtitles in several languages, will be posted on the Rossmore EPO website, rossmoreepo.org. And here is the agenda for you, Fran, when you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Harris. I'd like to give a very quick President's report on the activities during this last month, so our members and residents here know what we're up to. Harris and his team are doing a wonderful job with the membership contact information update. Pretty soon, we keep promising it, we're working on it, pretty soon we will have up on our website a way for you to go in as a member and to update your information, even if you think we have already. We're going to try to do this so that we can make certain every year we have updated contact information on people. I want to thank Amal Molick and Eric Cox. They have taken on the duty of calling coordinators who do not have emails and only use telephones. And of the 60 or so that they have called, we found that maybe a third to a half of those people have passed away or have moved out of Rossmore or somewhere else to another place in Rossmore, or have serious health considerations. So it's really important that we update this information. And what it says to me as president, in order to meet our mission, we've got to make certain that our entries and our streets are covered with coordinators and local teams. You'll notice that there's a dues button on the homepage of our Rossmore EPO website. It's rossmoreepo.org. If you've not paid your whole $5 for your 2021 dues, it's the best deal in Rossmore as far as organizations and clubs go. Please do that. I've asked our FRS operator team, that would be Christine Monsen and Amal Molick, to consider doing a guidebook for FRS radios. For those of you who don't know what that is, they're walkie-talkies that will help our entry coordinators and their teams and street teams, help them be able to communicate to CERT directly when CERT is activated following disaster here. It's really important that we keep up with that, and that we give our FRS operators in each entry and street the information they need. They're also going to do an article for the Rossmore News, which I'm very excited about. I think that's going to be good. And it again will let our general population here know what we are up to and how we operate. Marcia McLean, who is Rossmore area CERT coordinator, and I were played bingo with bingo night in February. Channel 28's George Ivanoff invited us to come, and we had a wonderful time. And that was an opportunity for us to help educate probably 1,500 to 2,000 people who play bingo every night. I mean, every month, the first Tuesday of every month. That was a wonderful opportunity for us to get some wide community visibility. EPO and CERT together in May are planning an FRS training session for our FRS operators, radio operators, so that we can work better together, CERT and EPO, on getting the message across to them on what we need. If we can get that message down the way it should be, CERT can then help get first responders in here following a disaster. We had a wonderful blood drive on February 12th. Colene will give a report on that in a minute. Colene Trinterud, our past president of EPO, and she tells me that we had 30 donors, 27 units of blood, and 6 new first-time donors, which is marvelous. So that means we're helping 81 people with life-saving blood transfusion. And I think EPO, Golden Rain Foundation, is our partner with this, and Red Cross can be very proud of that. That's great. We're planning 3 future meetings here for EPO. They still have moving parts, so I can't give you dates on it. I've identified a wonderful pulmonologist woman in San Diego County who has written the gospel, I think, on oxygen dependency and disaster relief. She's wonderful. So if we can score her, this is going to be great. As the coordinator of Entry 16, Terra Granada Drive, I think I worry more about oxygen dependency as a special need here than anything else, and I know least about it. So I think if we can get a good program on that, it'll be great. We're also planning a FEMA and insurance program. And then we also, in the near future, will have 3 local model programs. Harris Greenberg's will be one of them, on how do you start a program from scratch using the coordinator's handbook. So that's an important thing for us to do. I've started revising the coordinator's guidebook. If there's a graphic artist out there in Rossmore, anywhere, who would like to help me with that, we will put the words to it, but I would love to have a graphic artist. And if you go to our website, you'll find my president's email at the bottom of the homepage. If you're interested in helping with that, I would be delighted. And I know very little about graphic design, so that would be great. We also want to send kudos to Coordinator Carol Kravitz, Skycrest Entry 15. She is our winner of our first Rossmore Great Rossmore Shakeout. She did a wonderful job following all the COVID precautions that she should have. She wins the prize this year, and she and I will work together on an article in the Rossmore News. The Shakeout, for those of you who do not know, is a way to teach residents how to duck, cover, and hold on during an earthquake. It's important information. We need to get that to all of our residents, regardless of where you are when the earthquake hits. And most residents are probably not aware, but our biggest natural hazard we face here in terms of disasters is an earthquake. I think a lot of people think it's wildfires, but it's actually earthquakes. So we want to do all we can in terms of community education to get that across. I'd like to take a moment now to introduce our panelists and to thank them for coming. Harris is our EPO high-tech coordinator. He holds a graduate degree in nuclear engineering and has been absolutely marvelous at helping us with our Zoom meetings and our update of our membership. He's great. I have asked him to give me, and he gave me a sterling resume. I can't go through all of it, but he also serves as his entries EPO coordinator, and he's done that for 5 years. Colene Trinterud is our EPO Red Cross Blood Program lead, and she served EPO beautifully for 5 years. I'm standing on her strong shoulders as her successor. She's doing a fantastic job with the Red Cross blood drive. She'll give a report on that. It looks like she's doing such a good job that Red Cross would probably like for her to have it more often than quarterly. We've been doing it every 3 months. We'd like to do it more often. During COVID, across our republic, blood donations are down. So we want to do all we can. And it's great to watch Colleen get as excited as she gets, knowing that we're literally giving life-saving blood donations to people. Dennis Bell is retiring as Rossmore's Public Safety Manager on April 1st after 12 years of wonderful service for our community and its public safety needs. He is primarily responsible for Golden Rain Foundation's first emergency operations plan, and that first revision was adopted by the board in January of 2020. This is your last meeting with us, which makes me very sad, Dennis. I'm hoping I won't cry. There are two quotations I like on leadership that I think pertain to you, Dennis, in particular. One is Jack Welch's words: when you become a leader, success is all about growing others. And you've done a beautiful job of growing the emergency preparedness operations for the resident volunteers, the two groups here, CERT and EPO, who provide that help. And then I like Colin Powell's words: leadership is solving problems. It didn't take me long, being a member of EPO in the beginning, to know that if I had a question and I asked that question of you, I got an answer, and I got a swift and good answer. So we thank you, Dennis. Like I said, this is your last meeting, and it does sadden me. Tom Cashion is coming on as Dennis' successor on April 1st, and he's been inboarding under Dennis's guidance and for 2 months now. Tom, I'd like for you to describe your law enforcement and public safety experience before being hired by Golden Rain to be our new public safety manager. Tom?
Yeah, thank you, Fran. Appreciate it. First off, I do have to thank Dennis. Dennis has been a phenomenal mentor to me, not only in the police department, but these past few weeks here in Golden Rain. He's also the one who came out, reached out to me, and really encouraged me to apply to be his successor. So thank you, Dennis, for all the work you've done for me and helping me along the way. I really appreciate it. I come from the Walnut Creek Police Department, where I worked over 24 years. I retired as a police captain in December of 2020. And I took on the Rossmore Public Safety Manager position on February 8th. So I've been here going on 3 weeks now. My experience is I've had a multitude of assignments, from officer to detective to sergeant and lieutenant and executive lieutenant, and then most recently as a captain. Some of the roles I had was I was the assistant commander to our regional SWAT team. I was the manager of our bomb squad, which is unusual to have a bomb squad in this police department of about 80 sworn officers. So it's kind of unique. We are responsible for all of the citizens of Contra Costa County. I was also the Rossmore sector commander, and part of that was participating on the development of the EOP with Dennis and the consultants, as well as starting up our Rossmore community policing team and some other things that we did in Rossmore. One of the things Dennis and I had been working on was doing a wildfire evacuation drill here in Rossmore. But first I wanted to do one in Lakewood. They actually asked first. And part of that is they're very similar to Rossmore, one way in, one way out. And so we did a large wildfire evacuation drill in 2019. And it was a success with fire and emergency services and others in the police department. And then we were going to do it here in Rossmore in spring of 2020. Unfortunately, we were not allowed to do that because of COVID, but it's still on our plans to do. And recently we met with the city and the police department, and they still want to do that once it's safe to do that. So, and then in my education, I have both a bachelor's and master's in criminal justice from Cal State University, Sacramento. And then I've attended numerous other education schools in order to better myself in the field of law enforcement. And then lastly, I live here in Walnut Creek. I'm about 1.5 miles from the gate. I enjoy hiking. I enjoy working on old cars, but I'm not very good at it. And I also enjoy history and traveling. And that's it in a nutshell.
Tom, what a sterling record. If I can hark back to the bingo night announcement I made that Marcia and I did, and if we looked at the straight line bingo, which many people play here, I had the chance, Tom, to look back at the article that you wrote. It's well written and very well structured. I would say that the Rossmore community has won this straight line bingo in its hiring, in having Golden Rain hire you. This is what I see on our squares. You're forward thinking, you believe in empowerment leadership, you've got wonderful analytical and strategic planning skills. And I have typed you as a pragmatic visionary when it comes to solving problems. Welcome, Tom. We are delighted you are here. And I have said to you, and I will say publicly, I think my children will order a psychiatric evaluation if I follow through with this, but I would consider, not a promise at this point, but I would consider running for re-election for a third term as EPO president for the grace and honor of working with you. Welcome.
Thank you, Fran. Very honored.
We are also Zeynep Gundogdu, I hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly, is the wonderful manager of PG&E's medical baseline program since November of 2020. She's originally from Turkey. She holds 2 master's degrees, one in industrial engineering and one in business administration with honors from Georgetown University. Her professional experience includes strategic planning and the management of operations for telecom, banking, and manufacturing. Her PG&E program includes outreach, engagement, and close attention to regulatory strategies. And I'm delighted to have her. This is the first time we've asked her to come and to describe this program. It's a win-win-win for Rossmore residents all the way around, for all the stakeholders. So welcome, Zeynep. We're happy to have you here. Les Putnam is no stranger to EPO. He's one of our longest community partners. He's been providing utility safety training for our EPO network, our EPO teams for 4 years now. Les's public safety program was a direct outgrowth of the San Bruno pipeline explosion. You may have remembered that in 2010. Les is a retired firefighter who provides customers and first responders how to safely shut off gas and electricity. As PG&E senior public safety specialist, he trains fellow firefighters, EMTs, police officers, and CERT members, among others. He is a state fire marshal and hazardous materials instructor who can answer your questions today about turning off your utilities safely and correctly. Welcome, Les, again. And then finally, welcome. Christine Monsen is a retired civil engineer and city planner. She's a member of EPO's board of directors. And as I said, she's in charge of our radio communications operations, and she does a fantastic job. She and her partner, Amal Molik, provide our FRS walkie-talkie training every Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. So we as coordinators can check in, make sure our equipment is working, make sure we know how to call in, and in time we'll be able to report our status if we have a problem in our entry following a disaster. So she is, and she also handles our questions and comments section. She is an ace at this, and we will have questions after our presenters, after their presentations at the very end. So our first presenter is Colene Trinterud. Colene.
Hi, everyone. This is going to be a really short update on our blood drive, which we did on February 12th. We registered 30 donors, collected 27 units of blood, and had 6 first-time donors. It's the first-time donors that really do excite me. There were a few morning issues with the Red Cross trucks getting the equipment there, and we had to cancel a few appointments. And we apologize to all of those who did get canceled, but all in all, it was a very, very good drive. In total, since October, we have given 3 drives, and the result is 97 units of life-saving blood. So congratulations, Rossmore, and thank you, EPO and GRF, for your support of these drives. It's so important. For April 21st, we already have 18 people that have registered, which is a little bit more than half of the appointments filled. So if you want to be in this blood drive, which I'm sure you all do, you better go get signed up quickly. Okay, so to sign up actually for the best results, please download the Red Cross Blood Donor app on your phone. It gives you your blood type when after the drive. It'll give you your blood type if you don't know for the first timers. It'll give you your COVID exposure. It has a rapid pass access, which you could go on and sign up earlier on the day of the blood drive. And it gives you the ability to manage your appointments. Best of all, it's going to also get back to you and tell you where your blood went. And that is really very exciting. The last time it went to, mine went to the Santa Clara complex. But it just is, it's very moving to know that. Okay, so any help that you need at all, please call or email me. My information is there. And also we do have blood drives coming up at the end of the year that are also on the site. So for July 30th and October 8th, you can go ahead and start signing up for that now. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Colleen. Wonderful work. Keep up the good work. Dennis and Tom, public safety report.
Yes, so let me first talk about the vaccination clinics that Rossmore provided the space for both Kaiser and John Muir to come on up and do some vaccinations. They have done several of them. There is no plans for another one just yet, but we'll continue to partner with them if they want to do another one up here. Of course, people have to get their second shots. They'll be notified by them. They probably already have and set up their appointments. Granted, we weren't privy to how many people went through. They kind of keep that.
At this point, Tom Cashion's Wi-Fi signal failed, as well as Dennis Bell's. And so Fran asked Zeynep to move her presentation up earlier, and Tom resumed the end of his presentation later in the meeting.
Zeynep, are you ready to begin?
Yes.
Good.
Are you able to see my slide?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today on behalf of PG&E's Medical Baseline Program. If you are not familiar with this program, this is tailored specifically for PG&E customers who rely on medical devices for their well-being. This is not an income qualified program. This is purely based on your medical needs. And this program provides two kinds of assistance to its customers. First one is we provide an additional allotment of energy every month to offset your medical devices usage, whether it is electricity or heating needs. And second, I think, which is the most important portion, is that it provides extra notifications in the event of public safety power shutoff or any other planned outages. And when we say extra notifications, we really mean it. We send you email reminders 2 days ahead of the outages. We send you text, we call you. If you don't respond to any of these, we come and knock at your door to check that you are safe and you are prepared for these outages. Excuse me. Let me give you some definitions to get you familiar with the program. In a perfectly normal world where there is no COVID, we require you to get a signature from a qualified medical practitioner to enroll in this program. But as you know, COVID hit all of us pretty badly, and we don't really want you to go to your doctor's offices to get those signatures. So until June 30th, you are able to enroll into the program by self-certification, meaning you don't need to get a signature from a qualified medical practitioner to enroll into the program. So now is the time for you to apply. And the definition of a qualified medical practitioner is a bit broad. It can be a licensed physician, a nurse practitioner, physician assistant, or person licensed pursuant to the Homeopathic Initiative Act. So if you are using a medical device, it is most likely that you are in touch and under the care of one of these practitioners. So you can simply ask them to help with your enrollment after June 30th. And of course, you need to have a qualifying medical condition, which I will give more details in the next slide. And as I mentioned, the only eligibility requirement is for you to be using a medical device, a device that helps you sustain your mobility or keeps you warm in the house if you have heating needs, or that supports your condition. And here are some examples of qualifying medical conditions. The most common ones: sleep apnea, compromised immune system that requires special heating or cooling needs, MS, or scleroderma with special heating needs. You can simply visit pge.com/medical baseline to see a full list of conditions and medical devices. As I mentioned, the application is quite easy at this time because we don't require a medical practitioner signature. What you need to do is visit pge.com/medical baseline to fill out the online application form. The application form has two parts. Part A is where you give us your information, the account holder information, if it is different than the resident with the medical needs. You have to give us the account number, the customer name, the address, and also we are asking for you to provide contact preferences to help with the planned outage notifications. This is essential that you provide this information to us because it is the only way for us to make sure that you are safe and prepared for planned outages. And of course, we want you to sign this form because it is an official application form, so we need your signature. Part B on the form is, in a perfect world, filled in by a medical practitioner. But until June 30th, we ask you to fill out this portion as well. And on this part of the form, we are asking you what your needs are. You are going to list here the medical devices that you are currently using, or the resident with medical needs who is living in the same house with you. We want you to identify if those devices or conditions require electricity or gas. It is very straightforward. And you can at any time call our call center to get some support if you are not able to fill in this information. And on this form, we also ask the medical practitioner to provide us some more information on your condition. Is it a temporary condition or is it a permanent condition? This helps us identify what you need to do for continued eligibility. If it is a non-permanent condition, after you enroll, on your anniversary of enrollment, on odd years, we ask you to self-certify, which means we ask you to fill out another form to confirm that you are still living in the same address and you still have the same medical needs. And on every even years, we ask you to get a doctor's signature from your qualified medical practitioner to confirm that you still have the energy needs for your medical device, and to see if there's any change, if you have new needs, so that we take those into consideration. If your condition is permanent, then it is much easier. After you enroll, you just need to self-certify every other year, basically telling us that you are still on the same address and you're still using the same devices. And you can find all the resources on our webpage, all the application forms. There's an application form online, or you can also call our call center to request the paper application form if you are more comfortable with filling in paper applications. And on the right side, you can see all the languages that we have available, these forms and the resources in. So we try to keep it pretty extensive. You can even request the Braille program brochure and application form. In addition to the medical baseline program, PG&E partners with a lot of support organizations in California. And one of them is the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers. And they asked us specifically to mention the services that they provide, the resources. They have a portable backup power program, emergency preparedness assistance, accessible transportation. For long-term outages, they provide hotel stays and food stipends. And also they help you with the application to the medical baseline program. This is a separate program, a separate support program, and you would have to apply at the CFILC website. I think when you have access to these slides, you can click on the links and apply for these programs if you feel the need. I think Les will share more information on this, but just briefly, here is in a nutshell all the safety and wildfire information that are at your fingertips if you need to. Whether you have a medical need or not, I think it would help you tremendously if you visit these links and get yourself educated on how to stay safe during a wildfire and how to prepare yourself for outages. We also provide some weather and GPS forecasting. So if you don't receive a notification for an outage, you can simply visit pge.com/weather to see which areas will be impacted in when there's a high wind or when the humidity is low. So you can get your information. There's a safety action center, that is my favorite, that helps you get prepared for any kind of emergency, whether it is fire or earthquake. And also we provide backup power assistance for some eligible customers. Aside from the emergencies, we also provide some payment assistance programs. One is CARE, which stands for California Alternate Rates for Energy Program, and FERA, Family Electric Rate Assistance Program. These are income qualified programs. So you have to, in order to be eligible for these programs, you have to provide that you have low income. And we also provide extensive information on other electric and gas rates. And you can do a rate analysis and choose the right rate for you and your household. And also we provide energy savings assistance and home energy checkup services as well. And these are the links for you if you would like to hear more about these services. And last but not least, here are some more resources for you. If you want to receive energy alerts, if you want to learn about budget billing, so you can simply click on these links and get the information you need. And as I mentioned, you can call our call center at any time. And I will be sharing my contact information with you as well. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any medical baseline specific questions. I would be happy to assist you.
Thank you again. That is wonderful. Your program is amazing. And I know that we have a number of residents here who could benefit from this program. They have special heating or cooling needs. They have medical devices or medical conditions that mean they would be, very good in your program. So we'll make sure this information also gets into our new coordinator's guidebook. And thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I hope this is not your last year. So Les, are you up next? And then Tom and Dennis will come back to you at the end for the rest of your public safety, if that's okay. Great. Welcome, Les.
Thanks, Fran. I want to make sure that Harris is able to take my program and go ahead and connect it to Zoom. Harris, can you hear me?
I can hear you and you are connected. We're seeing you and we'll see your slides when you're ready to show them.
Okay, here we go. Going to go ahead and start that as we speak. Okay, I think we're ready to go. So good morning, everyone. Once again, my name is Les Putnam, and I'm the public safety specialist with PG&E that covers Contra Costa County. And so I respond to emergency incidents, both gas and electric, as well as coordinate with county OES, police and fire for those emergencies, and provide training for everybody from police and fire agencies, CERT groups, to the general public. And so most of you may have had one of my classes before in Rossmore. We've been doing this for a few years, so welcome back. For those of you who are new to this, I'm hoping that you'll get some good information on how to keep your home safe and what to do in the event of an emergency. And then at the end of the presentation, I'll take questions through the chat, and hopefully we'll be able to get through this fairly quickly without any real IT issues. This is the first time I've done this virtually, so bear with us if we have issues. I'm looking forward to making this work. So I'll go ahead and begin, and let's start off with, this is a small, what we call flip book that is available to everybody that has basically all the information that we're going to be discussing in this presentation. In the book itself, it's color coded. The areas that are highlighted in yellow will talk about natural gas. The areas highlighted in red will talk about electricity. I believe Fran may also have a number of these books that she could provide to you. You can order them online, and then at the end of this, I'll provide my email, and if you need more information on how to get a hold of the books, or you're having issues with that, you can contact me, and I can provide a number of these back to Fran so she can distribute those amongst everybody who would like these. So how do you get a hold of PG&E in the event of an emergency? Obviously, the first thing we want you to do is call 911 because you're going to get your local fire department, Station 3, just outside of Rossmore. It's going to come out and they'll be there within a few minutes. Versus PG&E personnel are going to take a little bit longer because we're not in all residential areas at the same time. So you would call 1-800-743-5002 if you just need to get a hold of a PG&E crew, or just call 911 and the fire department in turn will go ahead and contact PG&E as a response for any utility emergencies. So I wanted to talk a little bit briefly about the gas system and how you get natural gas to Rossmore. So we provide natural gas through an underground pipeline system. There are two different types of pipes in our system. Transmission pipe would be high volume, high velocity, high pressure gas. Typically the pipes are going to be in steel pipe, and the size ranges from 10 to 42 inches. The pressure in that pipe will begin at 150 psi and can go as high as 1100 psi. We also have what we call our distribution system pipe. This is typically plastic pipe. The majority of the pipe in Rossmore is plastic at this time. We've pretty much changed out everything from the old iron pipe or the first generation plastic to this new yellow looking plastic that we have currently. The plastic pipe comes in dimensions anywhere from 1/4 inch to 24 inches, and the pressure in that pipe begins at 60 pounds and can go as low as 2 pounds, depending on the system that you have in that area. All the gas pipes in Rossmore are at 60 pounds currently as of today. So a little bit about how you can see where the transmission pipes are. Just as a note, there are no high pressure, high volume pipes in Rossmore or even close to Rossmore. They all are coming out of Walnut Creek on our distribution system at 60 PSI. But if you wanted to know where the pipelines are, the transmission pipelines within Contra Costa County, you can log on to www.pge.com/pipeline locations, and through that website you'll have the ability to see where the closest transmission pipelines are to your community. So it's a good way to understand the infrastructure that we have in Walnut Creek. So again, if you're buying a house, selling a house, or looking at something like that, knowing where pipelines are is probably a good thing. You typically don't read that fine print in your homeowners agreements to understand that there's pipeline throughout the state. We have thousands of miles of transmission pipelines, so it's important to know where these are for safety reasons. This is what when you can also go to the National Pipeline Mapping System. This is a federally operated website that allows you to see where all hazardous materials pipelines are, not just PG&E's natural gas pipelines, but everything from crude oil, gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, all the other commodities that are shipped underground. Once again, it's a good resource to understand where the infrastructure is and where you might want to or not want to buy property or have a school built or any of those types of things. So this is available through the www.npms, which is the National Pipeline Mapping System, .phmsa.gov. No, there we go. So first thing I want to do is talk about, show you a video. And one of the biggest problems with natural gas as it leaks from one of our pipes, and this can be due to a number of reasons. It typically is going to be due to what we call a dig-in. Somebody is digging in their front yard or digging in the street for construction, and they hit the pipe and it begins to leak. Natural gas is lighter than air. It typically goes straight up into the atmosphere and dissipates with some wind. So an outside gas leak is not typically a major issue. However, because gas is under pressure, it can be forced through the soil and get into other utilities. And typically it'll get into the sewer system. It can get into any other underground pipes such as water or other utilities, electrical lines, and so forth. So in this video, it's going to demonstrate what can happen if we're not aware of what we call gas migration. So what happens here is there's a gas leak in a transmission pipe within about 3/4 of a mile of this community. The gas got into the sewer system and migrated quickly through the sewer system and into the community here. There's an explosion, 3 homes are damaged. The fire department responds to this location, and once they get on the scene, they extinguish the majority of the fire, and unfortunately they have a 4th explosion. Again, this is just an indication of gas migrating into a community through the utilities, and it gets into the homes in the area. And people don't understand that it can do this very quickly, and it happens more often than not, and they need to be prepared for this. So what do we want to do in this situation? We want to leave the house, move upwind to a safe area. We typically want to be at least 300 feet away from the house or from the gas leak, and then we want to make sure we call 911 to get a response for this situation here. So this is just a diagram of what that looks like. This is what we call a dig-in. Contractor is digging in the street level. They hit the natural gas line by accident. Gas is lighter than air. It typically goes up into the atmosphere. But as you can see, the gas in the green pipe also can be forced through the utilities because it's under pressure, and now it gets into the structures again through the P-traps and those locations, other utilities as far as electrical lines as well. So there's a number of ways that this can happen, and we need to be concerned about it when we have a gas leak in the area and understand it and be able to respond to it. There's one other thing I want to mention about natural gas. Natural gas has a rotten egg smell to it. we add that rotten egg smell. By law, we have to be able to odorize natural gas so it can be so you can smell it and understand that there is a leak. If we didn't do that, natural gas by nature does not have a smell to it, so you wouldn't know that you had a leak either indoors or outdoors. So that odor is called mercaptan. It gives it a rotten egg smell. So anytime you're smelling that, a sulfur rotten egg smell, it's an indication you have a gas leak in your home or near your home. And again, you would want a 911 response and a PG&E response to help mitigate that as well. So some of the other things that can happen because of a natural gas leak and or incomplete combustion of natural gas is it'll create carbon monoxide. Hopefully all of you have a carbon monoxide detector in your home. It's very important to have that. It detects this odorless gas, which can be lethal, and as it gets to a certain percentage in air, it'll begin to alarm. At 40 parts per million in air, it becomes lethal to you. You become drowsy, nauseated, typically all you really want to do is lay down and go to sleep, and in a lot of cases, you won't wake up again. So it's important to have that detector to understand when you have a condition that's creating a carbon monoxide exposure. And this can be because of incomplete combustion due to a faulty appliance, such as a stove, a heater, and or it can be because the natural gas has leaked and displaced the oxygen within the building as well. And in some cases, that will also leave a carbon monoxide footprint. There are a number of ignition sources for natural gas, and so when we're dealing with a leak, if you have a smell of gas, these are things you need to think about that are potentially going to ignite the gas and, of course, create a much more severe condition. So vehicles in the area, anything that has a motor can ignite the gas, power tools can ignite the gas, communication devices. So everything from your cell phone to the portable radio you might use as a CERT member, because of the battery that's in there, has the potential to ignite gas in the area. So you don't want to use your cell phone inside or close to the area where you're smelling gas. Move to a clean air environment before you make that phone call. Ringing doorbells. Ringing a doorbell on your neighbor's house as you're checking on them after an earthquake. If there's gas in the house, the doorbell can actually create an electrical spark which can ignite the gas within the structure. So we want to knock on the door and smell for gas around the door frame before we enter that structure. Light switches. Gas will typically permeate into the walls of a structure, and as it does, it can get into the electrical outlet boxes for the switches or the outlets. And if you turn off or turn on the electricity, it creates an arc within that box, and then that can also create ignition. So other things are flashlights. Again, a battery operated device can create ignition. So don't use a flashlight with a battery operated device in a house full of gas. If you're trying to get somebody out, that type of situation. And then lastly, static electricity, which can be created a number of ways, can create ignition. So static electricity might be walking over your synthetic lawn into your neighbor's house, which creates a static charge in your body. And when you get to the front door, you touch the doorknob, and now you get an arc from that as well. Static electricity can be created by walking into a home with carpet, and the carpet would create that static electricity that we're familiar with. You touch the doorknob or you touch somebody, creates that static arc. So how do you eliminate that? Try not to walk over those synthetic materials, lift up your feet. And then the reality is, if you wear gloves, leather gloves or some type of work glove, that static arc cannot leave your body, creating that ignition potential. So this video shows, it does have volume, hopefully everybody can hear that, shows two other ignition sources.
Whoa, what's that?
This is an
Oh my
outside
gosh.
gas leak.
That pole
And
went up right in
you see
front
the
of me.
electrical lines in the area
Ooh,
create ignition.
Look at, oh my God.
But also the vehicle, the police vehicle
Oh
in the
my
center of
God.
the video creates ignition. So here, outside wires can create ignition, as well as vehicles in the area that are running. So the point of this is that when you have an outside gas leak, you want to be concerned if there are wires in the area above and or near the gas leak,
Whoa.
and
What's that?
secondarily,
Oh my
any
gosh.
vehicles driving
That
through the
pole went
area
up right in front of me.
could potentially
Woo.
create that ignition.
Look at, oh my God, look at it.
So very dramatic. This doesn't happen very often.
Oh
It's
my
pretty
God.
rare, but it does have that potential, and we want to be at least concerned about it. All right, let's get to how to shut off a gas meter. And normally we would do this in person. We would have some visual devices that we could look at and understand how to do that. So the reality is the only time you want to shut off your gas is if you're actually smelling that sulfur smell or that rotten egg smell either in your home and or near the outside of your home or near the gas meter. And so what we want to do, and you want to do this before you have an emergency, is you want to know where your gas meter is. So go walk outside your building. And some buildings in Rossmore are basically the condominium style where they're interconnected. So you may have multiple meters next to each other, but find your gas meter and be able to locate where the on and off valve is. Typically, as the gas comes underground and into the pipe above ground, the first thing you're going to see is the valve itself. As you see the picture off to the left of this, that's what the valve looks like. It has a lever on the inside, a portion of the valve that turns cylindrically to an on and an off position at 90 degrees. And so as I click this, you'll see what you're going to do is you're going to put your wrench on that valve and you're going to turn it 90 degrees. Simply just like that. Once it's at 90 degrees, the gas will be off. The next thing to do to confirm that is look at all the at the smart meter portion of the valve, and all the digits should stop moving, which would indicate there's no flow of gas through the meter and into the house. So important to look at that and verify that you've actually turned the gas off. All right, so that's how we turn it off. Once you turn it off, don't turn it back on. We want PG&E to do that because we'll inspect the meter, make sure everything is correct. We'll turn it back on, and then we'll also reignite all your pilot lights and make sure everything's functioning correctly. So if you're not sure where the valve's at, feel free to give us a call, and we'll send someone out to be able to show you where the valve is. And if you're not sure whether it's working or not, same thing. Give us a call, and we'll come out and check the valve and do an inspection, as well as, if necessary, do make sure we make some adjustments on the valve so it functions properly. The next thing I want to talk about is earthquake valves. The majority of people in the Bay Area will have an earthquake valve simply because it's a great safety valve, as well as some cities actually not just recommend it, but they also require it as part of any new building or reconstruction in the area. So the little red area on the gas meter is typically where you're going to find the earthquake valve. It's going to be on what we call the customer side of the valve, and it looks pretty much like one of these right here. There are about 12 different varieties, but this is the most common that you'll see in the Bay Area. So simply as the gas moves through the pipe and into the house, this valve will sit here. If there is an earthquake, it shakes the valve and a lever will fall from the valve and block the pipe itself. It's just a mechanical device. It needs to be reset via the lever that you see right directly in front of you here, and then you have gas flowing again, and then all the gas appliances would need to be checked as well as reignited. For those reasons, anytime you have a problem with this valve, we recommend you call PG&E to come out, and we'll assist you in getting it back online and functioning properly. There are cases where this valve can operate or shut off due to other reasons, not because of an earthquake. So a heavy truck driving by with a heavy load, somebody bumping into the valve, either with a lawnmower or a garbage can, are all situations we've seen where the earthquake valve is actually activated and you don't have gas. Again, just call PG&E and we'll come out and get that back running for you. Each of your gas appliances have their own shutoff valves. So if you're smelling gas coming from your water heater or from your furnace or any other gas appliance, you could isolate that appliance via the appliance valve, which is typically a quarter turn valve, and you would put your fingers on that, turn it a quarter turn to the 90 degrees from the inline position, and that valve would shut off that gas to that appliance so that you could still stay in your home and until you can get an appliance repair person to make repairs to that appliance and get the pilot light reignited again. Some of you may have, as I said, multimeters where you're close. You have a set of meters that will actually be adjoined by multiple structures. In those cases, there is always going to be what we call a master valve, and so where you see the off or on note there, that's pointing at the master valve. And so if you needed to shut off those multiple meters, so an apartment complex or multiple structures all connected together through the same gas system, you could shut off that one valve and you would shut off all the gas meters within those structures itself. So it's another way to quickly isolate the gas within those structures. All right, so do's and don'ts for gas. Again, we want to stay away from a gas leak. So the first thing you want to do is get out of the house, move basically 300 feet away from the structure, and call 911 and get a PG&E response. Make sure PG&E's also responding, because sometimes the fire department has gotten busy or they inadvertently forgot to call PG&E. So a second call to PG&E is welcomed. Shut off the gas if you can. So have that wrench nearby. Try your wrench before you actually have an emergency, meaning try, make sure it fits on there. Don't turn it off or don't move the valve. Just try the wrench to make sure that you understand how that operates. And then only shut off the gas if it's safe for you to do so, and if you're smelling gas itself, that rotten egg smell. Anticipate ignition and expect that something could ignite the gas, and that's another reason we want to get out of the area. If it does ignite, then everybody's out of harm's way, and we don't have to worry about getting anybody injured or unfortunately killed in that situation. So control those ignition sources, all those things that we talked about that do ignite gas. So don't use those, or if you're going to use them correctly. Don't ring the doorbell. Don't use power tools. Don't drive through a gas area where there's gas in the atmosphere, and so on. And then only PG&E should turn the gas back on. Once the gas is shut off by either you or the fire department, PG&E wants to turn it back on to make sure the system is inspected correctly, and we can get all your appliances working and functioning the way they need to. Some things we don't want to do. We don't want to put out a gas-fed fire, either with an extinguisher or a hose or any of those types of things. If it's a gas-fed fire, we have to turn the valve off to illuminate the fire. So the reality is you want to just protect the house itself or the grass in the area with your hose, but try not to actually put that fire out. If the gas is burning, that actually is safer than if it's just collecting in the atmosphere and moving into spaces where it could ignite from other sources. As we talked about, don't use other electrical devices near a gas leak. And these other things are not typical of homeowners. You're not going to shut off a main valve in the street. You're not going to squeeze our pipelines. And I did want to mention that when you do have an outside gas leak, stay away from the manhole covers or the sewer openings that are along in the streets, because if gas does collect in those low-lying areas and there is an ignition, then what can happen is those manhole covers will start to fly off, and if there's someone near a manhole cover, they can get injured or killed from that. All right, so that is our natural gas discussion. Let's see, Christine, do we want to go ahead and take questions on the net gas portion before we move to the electric portion?
Fran, what do you think? We do have some questions related to the general presentation as well as specifically related to gas.
Les, let's wait until the end of your presentation, and then Christine will batch those questions together and feed them to you and to your the medical program, baseline medical program. Zeynep.
Very good.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's move into our electrical hazard discussion then. And so we're going to talk about things to do and not to do around electrical wires after an earthquake or any other situation. Maybe it's a PSPS event, a wind event where we've got wires down or other things going on. And so again, we're going to go through this, get an understanding of how our electrical system works, and talk about safety issues. So this slide right here kind of demonstrates some of the things that some people may not be aware of. You see the wires on the ground. It's actually on cement here and into the trees. So I would ask the question, does the tree itself, being a wood, would it conduct electricity? And the reality is yes, wood conducts electricity, even obviously if it's green wood, it has water in it, but also if it's dry wood, a piece of lumber out of Home Depot has enough moisture in it to actually conduct electricity through it. So you can't touch the tree, you have to stay away from the tree. What about cement? Yes, cement does conduct electricity. It has water in it as well. It has rebar, which is metal, which conducts electricity. And we've seen electricity go through the rebar and energize an entire cement pad or structures if you have it. Obviously, a vehicle, it's metal, can conduct electricity, so we wouldn't want to touch the vehicle as well. The reality is in all of these items that we're talking about, under our distribution system, you want to stay at least 30 feet away from this. Anything closer than that has the potential risk of creating electrocution for anybody in the area. So a little bit about our electrical system. We do make electricity in California. We do it a number of ways. That comes onto the grid, so to speak. And the first way it comes on is what we call transmission level electricity. So transmission level electricity are the big towers that we typically understand are in the area, and the level of energy in those is anywhere from 60 to 500,000 volts. That electricity then goes into a substation. There are several substations in Walnut Creek. In fact, I believe we have a substation just outside of Rossmore, and in that substation, that electricity level is dropped down to a lower level, what we call distribution level of electricity. That's the 4 to 21,000 volts, and that is what is typically on our wood poles and the wires that go to our customer, either commercial or residential. So we're all familiar with the big tower on the left side here. Everybody knows that that's high energy, high voltage. You would want to stay away from that. We do have poles in Contra Costa County, such as you see the other poles here that are wood poles that are also transmission poles. How do you tell the difference between a transmission and a distribution pole? Simply the long insulator that separates the wire from the pole indicates to me that this is a transmission pole. The longer the insulator, typically the higher the voltage. So anytime we're dealing with wires down or a situation from a pole that's transmission, their safety distance and safety margin for these incidents would be 100 feet. Anything less than 100 feet creates a safety issue for anybody in the area. Now we'll go back to our distribution. Just like gas, we have transmission and distribution. Electric has transmission and distribution. Distribution is the lower voltage that comes out of the substation, 4 to 21,000 volts. The short insulator between the wire and the pole or the crossbars indicates that this is just distribution. With that being said, again, the distance for safety on a distribution incident would be 30 feet on a dry day. And if you had moisture on the ground, either from rain, a sprinkler system, a fire hose, or whatever the case might be, you want to double that distance to 60 feet. So 30 feet on a dry condition, 60 feet on a wet condition for distribution system. This is a typical overview of what the poles would look like in a residential area. So we are undergrounding in Rossmore, where there is a lot of undergrounding that has occurred. So a lot of the wires are not above ground, as you would see. But just to understand that the highest wire on the pole is our primary wire, and that's going to be the highest voltage, 4,000 to 21,000 volts. That energy then goes into a transformer. The transformer is that, looks like a bucket, white bucket attached to the pole. Basically, it's full of oil, and the oil itself cools the energy and then drops it down to our secondary distribution line, which is our 240 or 480, depending on whether we're trying to feed a residential and or commercial structures in the area. The service wire goes from the 240 or 480 to the house. And so that's the wire that would typically come to your house. And it comes through what we call the periscope or the drop loop and into your meter. And then the meter is where you're going to see the rotating dial or the digital dial that indicates how much electricity you're using, as well as this is typically where you're going to find the breaker, the main breaker, to shut off electricity to your house. And I'll show you a picture of that in just a bit. Actually, show you a picture of that right now. So if you need to shut off the electricity in your home, and there may be a number of reasons. You have an appliance that's shorted out. You have something else going on electrically that you want to prohibit creating an electrical fire. There's typically going to be two different panels in most residential homes. You'll have an inside sub panel and or a outside main panel. The main panel is going to be near and or around our dial, as you see this one right here. You would open up the panel and in there would be breakers. The breakers should be identified as main or sub panel breakers. And so typically what we want to do is turn off the sub panel breakers first and then turn off the main breaker. Once again, once those are all turned off, you're going to take a look at the digital dial and it should go to 0, meaning you've shut off all the electricity to the house. You're going to want to call PG&E to come out and we would assist you in finding out, troubleshooting what the problem is and being able to assist you in getting the repairs done on that. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to give you any instruction on how to shut off your sub panel breakers inside the house. That's something you probably want an electrician to show you, or someone within your safety group might be able to talk about that or show you individually. But each panel, there's so many varieties of that. I can give you some generalizations, but typically the breakers inside the house are either going to be in a utility room, such as a washer dryer room or a closet. And each of those breakers would represent a room or a circuit within the house that you might be able to isolate separately on the breakers. But the reality is, if you have an electrical problem in your house, go out to the main breaker, turn these off, and you're assured that everything's going to be shut off so we don't create any additional issues. So what does the electricity do to our body? Remember, our bodies are typically made out of water, about 70 to 80% water. And with that being said, we are very conductive. The other thing about that is that we're touching the ground. Electricity always wants to go back to the ground or back to Mother Nature, to Earth. And so if for some reason we are touching a wire or too close to a wire, typically the electricity comes through our hands if they're touching the wire, or whatever part of the body is near the wire, and it goes through our body and then goes to the ground, either through a foot or that type of situation. The reality is people aren't dying from the electricity going through their body. It may injure them, their hands or their feet, as an entry point or an exit point. But the reality is that the damage from electricity is due to cardiac arrest. Electricity is part of our body, and we have a natural electricity in our body. And as we get electrocuted, it disrupts the heart rhythm and puts us into cardiac arrest. And so with that being said, anytime somebody gets electrocuted, especially if you're an elderly person, you have any medical conditions, we advise that you go to the hospital, that you get an EKG, and that you get checked out thoroughly to make sure that you don't have any residual effects to that electrocution. So let's talk about touch potential. This simply says that when our wires come down, whatever they are touching, those items can become energized. We talked about how wood can conduct electricity, how metal conducts electricity. So if this wire falls on a fence, a metal fence, a cyclone fence, whatever the case might be, that fence is now energized for some distance. That distance is depending on the type of material that the wire is laying on, as well as the voltage coming into that system. So with that being said, I want to show you this video, which pretty graphically shows and demonstrates what can happen with touch potential. and there will be some. I'm gonna go back out of this for a second and check my my sharing here.
The sound was working fine.
It was?
Yeah.
Oh, apologize for that then. Go back to sharing. All right, here we go. Tell me, make sure it's working for you.
Now it's not. The sound was good before, now it's not. Working again.
Holy cow! Look at the fence!
And now the metal fence is actually in the
There, that might have did it.
60
Nope.
So the reality is this was a near miss. Could have been a severe injury or fatality. The electricity goes through the metal fence because it's more conductive than the wood fence. And so if those firefighters were touching the wood fence, excuse me, the metal fence, they would have been injured or killed. So this is called touch potential, something we need to be concerned about. Anytime we have a situation like after an earthquake where wires are down, we need to keep our distance not only from that wire of 30 feet, but also 30 feet from anything that wire is touching, such as a fence, a guardrail, a vehicle, whatever the case might be. This is called step potential. Step potential simply means when a wire comes to the ground is energized. The energy starts to flow outward from where it's making contact and starts to dissipate. At 30 feet away, the energy is basically zero, and so there's no potential for electrocution. But if we're in that 30 feet boundary close to the wire, we have the potential of getting energized because as our feet are touching the ground, we're at two different levels. Each foot is at a different level of energy, even by a few volts or kilovolts. So that means that the electricity wants to equalize. It goes through our body, it grounds itself, and we obviously would become electrocuted. So how do we prevent that? The reality is that if you keep your feet together right next to each other and touching, the electricity is at equal kilovolts, and which means that there's nowhere for the electricity to go. It has no need to become equalized. It's already equalized. So you could stand within this circumference of the 30 feet and not get electrocuted by simply keeping your feet together. If you needed to move out of this location because either the grass caught on fire or there were other dangers involved with this, the way to do that safely is keeping your feet together. You would hop one hop at a time out of the circle 30 feet away from the wire. And typically we would demonstrate this, but the reality is keep your feet together, have them land on the ground both at the same time, and slowly hop away until you've gotten into a safe refuge area. The other method to do this, if you're unable to hop for medical reasons or whatever the case is to shuffle your feet. And during the shuffling process, you would keep your feet together and shuffle them so that they're always touching at some point, either heel to toe, and shuffle again away 30 feet. All right. We want to make sure that you understand that when we do have a wire down, as you see in here, not only do we have the touch and the step potential issues, but also the integrity of the poles above ground are now damaged, meaning that the poles have a higher potential of coming down. So we don't want to stand underneath the poles. You don't want to park underneath the poles. You want to stay away from this whole system at least 30 feet until we can get there and stabilize everything and get things back in service. All right, so stay away from all of that. Let's talk about wires and vehicles. So there's three scenarios that you could potentially be in with a wire on the ground or a wire on your vehicle. You would be in the vehicle, and the best case scenario is the wire is touching your vehicle. However, you're able to drive your vehicle. You simply put it in reverse or forward and slowly move away. The wire falls off of your vehicle. You drive 30 feet away, and now you can get out of the car safely and not be concerned about getting electrocuted. Again, call 911, call PG&E so we can get someone there so no one else gets in danger of that wire being on the ground. The second scenario is your vehicle is damaged. So just say you hit another car or you hit the pole or whatever the case might be. You have a wire on your vehicle. You would simply stay in your car. The safest place for you to be is inside the car. You're insulated from the electricity by the tires on the ground. However, if you step out of the car and touch the ground with your feet, you are now at two different levels of electricity, and there's where the potential for getting electrocuted occurs. The third scenario is just that. Your vehicle is energized. You have to get out of the car. It's on fire, or there's a life threat to you that means you need to get out of that car. You're going to open up the door and you're going to get out, and the way to get out is very unique. And so the video I'm going to show you now, and again, hopefully the volume works here, is going to describe to you how you should get out of the vehicle and move to safety in that situation.
Honey, I gotta call you back in a couple of minutes. Oh boy, not good.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Plan B, exit the vehicle. But now I gotta worry about touch potential. Touch potential is risk of electrocution based on one part of the body touching an energized object like a car while simultaneously touching the ground. Electricity flows from the vehicle through the body and into the ground, essentially making me into a human jumper cable, which would be bad. I gotta jump and land with both feet together. Whew! Okay. Now, step potential. Because the ground is energized, electrical current can travel through me if my feet aren't close together. Electrical current enters through one foot and out the other. The further apart my feet are, the greater my chances of getting shocked. So I must move away using short, shuffling steps. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. There you go. You got this, Steven. No large steps, just keep on shuffling. Every day I'm shuffling. Oh. I'm sorry, I can't come to the phone right now. I'm busy trying to stay alive at the moment.
Okay, so again, just to review the video, he opens the door and he stands inside the door jamb of the vehicle and hops out and lands on the ground with both feet at the same time, right next to each other. And the key point here is you cannot touch the vehicle with your hands in any way once your feet land on the ground. And the reason is that now you create that that contact point between the vehicle and the ground through your body, and this creates the electrocution situation. So that's the reason we want to have our arms close to our body and jump out with both feet at the same time, land on the ground, and then hop or shuffle 30 feet away from your vehicle at that point. Okay, and I'll get to questions on that if you have any at the end of the presentation. A couple of other situations to be aware of. In a lot of residential areas, we have what we call pad mount transformers. This is that metal box you would see on the corner of the street or somewhere in the neighborhood. That box is basically a pole. Everything that's on a pole is in the box. And so these boxes are very safe on a day-to-day basis. Where they become dangerous is if a vehicle hits one of these boxes. Any situation where a vehicle either touches or hits a box like that should be considered a potential electrocution situation. And the reason is that the inside of the box could be damaged without any obvious exterior signs of that. So basically stay away from the vehicle, stay away from the box at least 30 feet, make a 911 phone call, get someone out there so we can evaluate whether that is there's been damage and the box and the vehicle are energized. Tell the person if they're in the vehicle to stay in the vehicle. Don't get out. Stay there as we saw in the video unless there's a life-threatening reason to get out. We have had situations like this, and you may be a bystander or taking a walk in the neighborhood. If we have a hydrant that's sheared off and the water is into the electrical lines, as you see in the picture on the right-hand side, that is an electrocution situation. The electricity is actually going down the stream of water, down to the ground, and the puddle of water is energized, and the water as it runs down the gutter is at about 60,000 volts. This is an incident in San Ramon a number of years ago, and fortunately nobody got injured here, but you can see the potential of this being an electrocution situation. Another video of another hydrant. These are firefighters. Again, they don't understand the electrocution potential.
Wow.
The water's energized, and one of the
Did you guys see that?
Two of the firefighters actually get electrocuted.
Did you guys see that?
Fortunately, not severely, but any flowing water as it goes into electrical lines has the potential to do this. So wanted to show you video of
Team 2, operations, fire's coming down the draw. Nobody under the power line. Nobody under the power line. Well clear. Christina, you guys go ahead and light right there. Bring that back down.
Well, this is a wildfire situation, and you know, in Rossmore, obviously, you have surrounded by moderate to heavy vegetation in the area. Any above ground electrical lines have the potential during smoky wildfire conditions of conducting electricity through the smoke. The carbon in the smoke actually becomes energized and can bring the electricity to the ground. So if you're doing evacuations out of the Rossmore area into a safe area during a potential wildfire, do not evacuate under wires or underneath the wires during moderate to heavy smoke conditions. You would want to find a different route to be able to get out of that location. If there's no smoke, it's fine. You can do this with not a problem. So something to consider in your evacuation plan, and understand where the overhead wires are that might become a risk to you during smoky conditions. All right, do's and don'ts for electricity. Again, ensure your safety. So that means be aware of your surroundings, understand where the dangers are. If you're a CERT member or safety member, make sure that when you're doing your work that you have your safety equipment on, so your helmet, your goggles, and gloves. Gloves are very important and keep you safe. Make sure that you notify PG&E if there are any electrical and or gas situations. And then treat every wire that's on the ground as an energized wire. It doesn't matter if it's a phone wire or a PG&E wire, because there are different wires on the poles. They all should be treated as energized until proven otherwise by a PG&E personnel. Don't touch the wires. Don't touch anything that is touching the wire. That's that touch potential that we were talking about, such as the trees or vehicles and so forth. Keep your distances. Remember, for distribution, 30 feet on a dry day, 60 feet on a wet day. For transmission, it's 100 feet. And in my view, the reality is I'm going to stay 100 feet away from every wire that's on the ground. I have no reason to be that close. For my safety, I'm going to give myself the maximum safety distance at 100 feet. If you're in a vehicle that's energized, stay in the vehicle. If you can't drive it away from the incident. And if you need to get out of that vehicle, we're going to follow the procedure that we saw in the video, where you're opening the door, jumping out with both feet landing at the same time on the ground without touching the vehicle, and then moving to a safe distance by hopping or shuffling from that location. What we don't want to do is assume that PG&E has been notified. So the more calls to PG&E, just like when you call 911, the more calls they get about something means it's real, and that they're going to be getting there as quickly as they can. Don't touch anything with gloves or sticks or wood poles or any other type of tool, because remember, wood is conductive as well. So your broomstick that might seem theoretically able to move that wire from one position to another could still create an electrocution situation for you touching the broomstick. And then again, don't extinguish electrical fires. So the reality is there's three things to remember, and I'm going to go through these. The first thing is ensure your personal safety. So you are important. You have probably have some friends that like you being around, and you have family, and so you want to keep safe and understand the safety things that we were just talking about. Number two is call PG&E. Call 911 first, and then PG&E. We are there to help you with any utility emergency. And even if you're not sure that it's an emergency, call us anyway. We're more than happy to help out and make sure that everybody's safe. And then again, keep your safety distances. As long as you're doing that, staying away from the 300 feet away from the gas incident, the 100 feet away from the electrical incident, you're gonna stay safe, and you don't have to worry about being in any danger. So again, any wires down, it doesn't matter whether it's a phone wire or not, just assume it's energized, because if you don't, you have the potential of becoming complacent around it, and then.
Не знаю, какой-то это микроавтобус зеленый. Да, сбежал.
Even firefighters are not immune to electricity, and it's a major concern for us as well and everybody else. So once again, I thank you for hanging in here with me during this presentation. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there in person. Looking forward to doing that again in the future. This is my contact information. If you have additional needs, questions, or concerns about PG&E, give me a call. And if I can't take care of it, I'll make sure we get in touch with the right people from PG&E to address that. I think we have a pretty good relationship with Rossmore and their safety people, and we're working hard to protect your community. And anything we can do better, just let us know. So with that, Fran and Harris, I'll turn this back over to you and answer any questions.
Thank you, Les. That was a wonderful presentation per usual. And I want folks to know that I have plenty of the CERT flip books on gas and electric utility issues. So if any of our coordinators would like one, please get in touch with me. Ralph Anthenian and I both harvested a number of these books the last time Les was here in person. So we have those as resources. Please just let me know. And again, my email, if you don't have it, is at the bottom of the homepage on rossmoreepo.org website. Thank you, Les. That was great. Let's go back to Tom and Dennis and see if we can finish up the public safety report that froze on us.
Yeah, sorry about that. We keep losing our Wi-Fi signal here. Les, that was an excellent presentation. Every time I watch those, I learn something new. And anyways, thank you. Excellent job. I was just wrapping up that we'll continue to work with Kaiser and John Muir to hold any clinics that they want to bring here to further vaccinate. And I'm not sure if I shared, but you can, if you still need to be vaccinated for the COVID, you can still do it through the state. And they have, they're running the one that's right outside the gate at Tice Valley Gym. And then you can also do it through Contra Costa County Public Health. And I believe the closest vaccination site is DVC. And then lastly, what I had an update was we continue to partner with PG&E. We are hosting another infrastructure, PG&E infrastructure meeting on April 15th. And there'll be more information about that to come out shortly. And that's all I have, Fran.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much. Let's go to Christine now with questions and comments.
Okay, thanks. These are great presentations. One of the first questions is for Tom. What's the building behind you?
Wow, does anybody on the panel recognize it? That's the Dollar House.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that's the last easy question you're going to get, Tom. That was like to warm you up. Okay, now Zeynep, we have a question about the applications. And the question was, can we fill out the applications online or do we have to print them out and snail mail them in?
You can do both. I think online is easier and you will receive a response much faster if you do it online.
Okay, great. And now we do have a number of questions for you, Les, because you're more shocking. The first is, those videos that you showed were pretty darn scary. Now, the gas line explosions, was that from a small diameter line?
Yes, the first video where the 3 homes were damaged, that was an 8-inch plastic line. And the others were all distribution system lines as well. So those were fairly small natural gas lines.
So those are the types of lines that we have here in Rossmore.
Your largest line in Rossmore that comes in feeding Rossmore is 6 inches.
Okay.
And it's still 60 PSI.
Okay. Okay, what about the electrical fires and that fence lighting up? Were those distribution lines or were they transmission lines?
Yeah, great question. The video with the swing set where the firefighters are near the fence, that was a transmission line at 60,000 volts. And I'm trying to think of any of the other videos. The video at the end where the firefighter gets severely injured, that was a distribution line. That was actually the home line at 440 volts coming into a home from a pole. And the others, I believe, were all distribution as well.
And just to be clear, a distribution line can get you if you aren't smart.
Absolutely. And the reality is your outlet in your house at 110 volts can kill you too, given the right conditions. If you're a good conductor, you have moisture on your hands, you have a medical heart condition or something like that, under the right conditions, that can also electrocute you. So, and this is what I mean. We all know the old movies where someone's taking a bath and the radio falls into the bathtub and they get electrocuted. That's very real, and so that's your home level energy, and you need to be concerned about that as well.
Or in the kitchen, if you've washed your hands.
Yeah, the toaster, sticking the knife in the toaster. The reality is, the outlet itself is probably safer, but if you plug in an appliance and now you stick a knife or a fork in that appliance, because it draws amperage, that amperage is what increases the risk and potential for either a major injury or fatality.
Okay. There's a question about the flip books. Have they been updated recently?
Actually, our CERT flip book is in the process of being updated. It has not come out. The new edition hasn't come out yet, mainly because of COVID. Everything's been completely roadblocked. So the CERT books are the same that they've been over the last number of years.
Okay. And again, Fran and Ralph have those. Next is, if there is an event, how are we notified? Does PG&E have an alarm if someone breaks a gas line or if a transmission or distribution line is down?
So on the transmission system, we do have remote sensing, what we call sensors. It's called a SCADA system, which allows us to identify changes in pressure or malfunctions in valves or those types of things. We do not have that as of yet within the distribution system. So any damage to a distribution system would be notified to PG&E via 911 or a homeowner or a contractor who might have been doing work in the street and hit the pipe and now they've got a leak. And that's how we would get notification of that situation. So the technology is being developed for the distribution system to be able to identify those leaks as well. We're just not there yet. We do have valves within our distribution system, so we have the ability to manually shut those off in the areas as well. But typically, it's going to be a notification from either a customer or a contractor or 911.
So were your alarms in many cases by calling?
Yeah, we don't have an alarm system on our distribution system. What we do have that SCADA system, which is an alarm system on our transmission system.
Okay. Now this is for either Dennis or Tom. Does GRF have any way of notifying, any sirens or any way of notifying folks if there is a downed electric line or if there is a risk of a gas leak?
If or when GRF becomes aware of these issues, we'll use Rossmore Nixle to get information out to the community, but we have to be made aware of them. And issues that impact the mutuals or the homes, GRF is not automatically notified. GRF is not the customer of PG&E in those cases, but when we hear about it from residents, if they start calling in, then we will put out a Nixle advising the community.
Okay. But if you're turning your phone on, be careful if it's a gas leak, as we've heard. Okay, let's see. There were some questions about the different types of valves, like an earthquake valve or an emergency valve that for gas shutoff. Do you recommend those, Les? Like an earthquake shutoff for the gas?
We talked about the PG&E valve. That's standard on every meter, has that valve for either us or the fire department or the resident to shut off. Then the earthquake valve is that red bulb or that we discussed or something similar to that. Again, there's about 12 different models or varieties of that earthquake valve. PG&E is neutral about the recommendation on that valve, meaning it's actually more of a nuisance to us because they do trip inadvertently and we have to go out there, but that's okay. We think that there probably is a use for them. The problem with it is if you go on vacation and it trips inadvertently, then your gas is shut off and you have to get it all reset. The good thing is if you go on vacation and we have an earthquake, it trips and you consequently don't have to worry about a gas leak in your home. So there's pros and cons. Those are things that are weighed by the homeowner. It's a homeowner-owned valve, meaning you buy it, you have it installed. Typically, it's going to be installed by a contractor as the building is built. The other part of that is that a lot of cities, in fact, probably the majority of cities in the Bay Area now require them. If you say, for instance, replace your water heater, you have to pull a permit on that. They may go, you also now need a automatic shutoff valve or earthquake valve as well. So depending on the city, you have to look at the regulations and the permit needs and requirements for each of those cities. I'm not sure at this point for Walnut Creek what that is, but I believe they require an earthquake valve.
Okay. And one resident asked, is there any way to test and make sure that your gas line valve actually turns? Because I lived in a 1912 home and luckily I never had to turn the gas off, but none of our buildings are that old, but things can freeze up. Can they turn it a little bit or try to turn it just a little bit, quarter turn, and then turn it back on?
Yeah, a great question, and we have this discussion when we do this live in person, and so the short answer is yes. You can turn it a little bit, either left or right, to exercise that valve. The reality is it doesn't actually shut the gas off until you're near that 90-degree mark. So you can exercise it to see if your valve is going to work preventively before an actual situation. The caution is that you don't turn it too much and shut off the gas. The worst that's going to happen is you've done that, you shut off the gas, call PG&E. We'll come back out and get that all set up and working right for you again. It is a concern. Some of our valves have not been exercised in some time. We have been trying to work with Rossmore. That it's not an issue with Rossmore, but it's an issue with our availability to get our people out to go out and do our inspections of those valves. We talked about this several years ago, and I think we started a program where our people or PG&E was going out and on an annual basis to at least try some of these valves to make sure that they were working properly. The worst case scenarios, again, if you can't shut off the valve, is just to get out of the structure, stay 300 feet away, and let the fire department and or PG&E shut off the valve.
Okay. And anytime anyone shuts it off, let's say someone's practicing and they sneeze and turn it all the way off, anytime they shut off a gas valve, PG&E should be called. Is that correct?
That's what I would recommend. Different appliances, depending on the age of the appliance, may have automatic pilot lights, in which case, once they sense gas, they'll automatically relight. That's common with newer appliances. However, depending on some of the homes in Rossmore may have older appliances that don't have that ability. And you have to be very familiar with gas appliances to be able to turn on or relight a pilot light safely. So we just recommend you call us. It's free. It may take us, a few hours to get there and do that for you, but it's the safest way to handle that.
Okay. And one resident wrote that MOD, in cooperation with PG&E, has now exercised all gas valves here in Rossmore. Apparently, Paul Donner, the head of MOD, is in charge of that. So
good.
You don't.
I'm glad to hear that. It's the first I've heard of it. I know we've been working on that for some time, so that's great news.
Okay. We have a lot of multi-story buildings or multi-unit buildings.
Yeah.
Who should be turning off that main valve?
Well, the reality is the only time you need to shut off all the gas meters would be if you had a structure fire, and that would be the fire department.
Okay. So we shouldn't, if you have an electrical fire or a gas leak, residents shouldn't run and turn off the whole building. They should just locate their building, their specific unit.
Correct. And again, an electrical fire or any type of fire, you need to get out of the building and call 911. The appliance shut off on those is not critical to extinguishing the fire. The reality is that the shutting off the gas would be if you only had a gas leak. And again, which should be only for your building. So that's why the meter should be identified. If you have a multi-residential structure, each meter should be identified by the apartment and or resident address on it so that you shut off the correct meter.
Okay. A number of us have put solar in. Any special tips if you have a solar installation or the backup batteries that people are putting in now?
Regarding natural gas, there's no issues. It's completely safe and doesn't interfere with the natural gas situation. However, with electricity, our PG&E electricity coming into the structure, by code, solar needs to have its own isolated shutoff switch and should be well labeled, again, by code. And so you just need to be aware of if you're going to shut off electricity to the inside of your house, you would need to shut off not only the PG&E panel main breaker, but also the solar shut off switch, because if you don't, what will happen is you're shutting off PG&E, but your solar will still feed electricity through the panel to the interior of the home. So both would need to be shut off. And again, I'm not a solar, for that matter, not an electrician, but so I would actually ask that you consult your solar company to verify the proper safety procedures to be able to do that.
Okay, good. Are there any electric transmission lines here in Rossmore?
Oh, that's a great question. To be honest with you, I'd have to take a look at our maps and verify that, but I believe there are some just outside of Rossmore. The Moraga, Orinda, Rossmore line either crosses over parts of Rossmore and or around it. But I don't believe that there's any actual overhead transmission lines in Rossmore, but I'd have to verify that with my my mapping system.
Okay, but if we stay 300 feet away, it really doesn't matter if it's what voltage it is.
100 feet for electricity, 300 feet for gas. Yes, if you stay 100 feet away from the wire, it doesn't matter what voltage, you're safe.
Okay. Okay, now getting to within our unit. Someone said, what happens if there's a flood in our unit? Should we be turning anything off?
Well, that's a pretty hypothetical question in the sense that it depends on the severity of the flooding. Typically, your outlets and your electrical system is at least a couple feet off of the floor. So unless you had severe flooding, which I would anticipate even in a residential home, no, I wouldn't worry about the electricity. The other part of that is if water gets into the electrical system, it'll trip the breakers anyway, in which case the electricity should shut itself off. But I'm not a plumber versus, electrician, so I wouldn't have a solid recommendation on what you should or shouldn't do with that.
Okay. Okay, and one person asked, should we be turning off all of our electrical appliances before we go to bed at night?
So
or
again,
them, you know,
there's controversy or there's discussion on what you leave plugged in, and is there any danger with items that are plugged in? So typically there's not. However, you're using energy. Those appliances are still using energy, so you would save on energy costs by unplugging or turning off various appliances, such as hair dryers and or whatever the case might be. But I don't see that there's any major fire danger for those electrical appliances unless they are defective in some way and have a problem with the wiring or shorting out or something like that. I personally don't leave anything plugged in that I'm not actually using.
Okay. What about if the electricity goes up? What are the allowed backup options here in Rossmore? This might not be you. This might be Dennis and Tom who have to answer this.
I'll let them answer that.
I'm sorry, what was the question on that?
If the electricity goes out, as it has many times in the last few years, what are the allowable backup devices? I know we've talked a little bit about generators, and Dennis has said ixnay. But are there any allowable backup devices people can get or install?
None of the mutuals allow any kind of gas generators in the mutuals, so those, you can't use those. I'm sure there's solar backup battery or backup power systems you can use. You're best to explore those on your own and then check with your mutual on what's allowed after you do that.
Okay. And then the last question that I have so far is, who's responsible for tree trimming? One resident observed that outside of Rossmore on Tice Valley to Crest and Hillgrade and Danville Boulevard, the trees are touching the wires there. And we just saw that could be dangerous. Who's responsible for making sure that there's clearance from lines? And I guess outside of Rossmore as well as inside Rossmore. That might be a less question.
Back. Let me share my screen again. That's a great question, and it's something I want to address clearly with everybody. So let me go back to right here. Can everybody see that?
Yep. Okay.
So if we look at tree growth around our wires, these wires here, the top are, as I said, are primary, are energized, as are these right here, the secondary. There's another set of wires that typically is will always be below our energized wires that runs on, from pole to pole in kind of this fashion here. Everybody see that? Those are the lowest wires on the pole. Those are telephone, fiber optic, non-energized wires. Trees can be touching these wires, no problem. However, any trees or branches that are within, I believe it's 4 feet of these wires here need to be trimmed. So with that being said, if you have a situation in and or around Rossmore where you're seeing trees or foliage within 4 feet of these wires or the cross arms, let us know through me, or you can call PG&E at our 800, I believe the 5,000 number. Let me get that number for you in a minute. And we will send a crew out to take a look and investigate and take care of that work. So any trees around our PG&E poles and wires, we will handle the vegetation on that. If it's on private property and it's close to the poles or wires, we would request permission from the homeowner to maintain that vegetation, and we would take care of that. Except for one exception, the service wire that goes from the pole to the house, this wire right here, that's the responsibility of the homeowner. So any branches, and the reality is this wire, the service wire, is always insulated. So branches touching that wire are not an issue because it's an insulated wire.
Okay,
Is
good.
Clear?
That's
Okay.
very clear. Thank you. So the upper levels, if we see trees, call you or PG&E, but otherwise, don't worry.
Yes.
Okay, so we do have a comment that backup power is set by mutual policies, so call your director, and apparently battery generators are allowed. So with that, I think this has been great. Keep your distance. If you smell anything or see anything, don't use your FRS radio to call in if there's a gas leak, because you may create another disaster if you do so. And call PG&E if you've turned off your gas or any electric main. So with that, back to you, Fran.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Les, and thank you, Zeynep. This has been a great presentation, very helpful on both your parts. Good information. We'll look forward to having this up on our EPO website. It'll be on our YouTube channel, and it'll be on channel 28. So we're going to reach a lot of people with your good information today. I want to remind everybody that the novel coronavirus that causes COVID-19 isn't going to be moved to our spam folder anytime soon, folks. I want to commend Tim O'Keefe on his marvelous community health education that he does every single week when he does his CEO report. He covers it like I, as a community health educator, can fully appreciate. He does a very good job, and I think is in large part responsible for our community staying as safe as it has from this pathogen. I want to encourage coordinators and their teams to encourage their neighbors to continue to double mask. You're seeing the paper surgical, it looks like paper, the surgical mask goes on first, and then you need to cover that with a 2-layer or a 3-layer cloth mask if you're like me and you're still using your cloth masks. If you're using a KN95 mask, you only need one of those. You don't need two. Those of us who received the 2 vaccines, we still need the mask and we still need the social distance until we get herd immunity. Herd immunity, as you can see in the United States, is going to be a slow process, and it's going to be even slower globally. So most epidemiologists, most public health experts tell us that we may be dealing with this this pathogen for some time to come. So do all you can to get that word to your residents. And I want to thank everybody for a marvelous program, and we'll see you next month. Thank you.